Hi, everyone, and welcome to Man to Man Motivational Monday with me, Adrienne Oliver, aka Dr. A. Oliver, the hip hop scholar. So I got my hip hop background, my hip hop t shirt. I'm overdoing it a little bit today. But I have with me Jimmy Crutison, soon to be doctor as well. And he is a professor in African American studies at Berkeley City College. And I'm a professor also in English at Laney. And today I'm going to be asking Professor Crutison some questions to get the young men in the class motivated to read, and women as well. In motivating our men, women will become motivated too. So, how are you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing great, Dr. Oliver. Excuse me. I know that there's a sort of a rapport that we built working together at Laney, but I still will refer to you as Dr. Oliver always because you earned that. Other than that, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me. I'm lightweight feeling esteemed and honored up here with the accolades that you give presenting on my behalf. So appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you help me with this project. You know, that's the number one thing I've noticed. It's so simple that we can offer men to do more of. Um, you know, we have these mass incarceration rates and violence and all these other horrible things that our community is enduring. And I hope that the work we're doing together will make a small little change. So what?
Absolutely. Every bit counts.
Yeah, every little bit. And with that, why do you think it's important for men of color to read?
How much time do we have? Um, that being said, I'll start with it's important because black men and women, but particularly since you're asking about men, I'm speaking specifically about men and males. We're the creators of literature from the beginning of hieroglyphics or what some, people, I'm going to say European scholars have considered cave drawings. Um, anywhere in the world where there are melanated people, people have been writing. Um, Although it hasn't been translated into the English language as we are speaking and using now, been accustomed to speaking and using, Black people have always been reading so that we can share our stories, our own truth with our loved ones. So it's important for Black men to read when we speak contemporaneously, is because it was once I'm going to say the United States, for lack of a better word, but in the States, I don't find there's anything united about this country.
Right.
But in these states, it was once illegal for melanated people to read. And there's a story I would go back to by a gentleman by the name of Papa Doc, who actually taught himself how to read. And as he was reading, some colonizers caught wind of it as he's reading under the tree. And because he was learning to read, they burned out his eyes. They burned his eyes. So to me, that's one of the testaments in the notion that theological perspectives or religion was used to help enslave melanated people on this continent, as well as the continent more commonly known as Africa. And people were taught that this book is what people should adhere to. Well, God said this, God said that. But when people aren't able to read for themselves, then they can only rely on the master's tongue to interpret what God is actually saying. And the highest powers that I know do not move like that. Right? That's why we have this development of consciousness, so we could read and convey and articulate, comprehend things from our own perspective, tell our own stories. That's just one of the many reasons that I can speak to. But perhaps for the sake of this conversation. I'll leave it there for now, unless there's a time for me to
Well, I would just add that it's so important what you said about reading because we have to fight for the right to read. Because I think we've become so far removed from the fight and the realization that, it was illegal for us to read. And was it Papa Doc
Papa Doc.
had his eyes burnt out. And there's so many other stories. And now now that we can read, it's like everybody's so kind of lackadaisical about it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. When I was growing up as a product of the South, I was taught that if there's anything important that you don't want Black people to know, put it in a book. And that's not a Black saying. That's a saying towards and for Black people, right? Because of this notion that not only is it illegal for you to read, but even when you learn how to read, because we speak a so-called broken English, because we have no allegiance to the English language, now you don't know how to read, right?
Right.
Or you're lacking in your comprehension, or because you read slower than what the American education standards suggest, then somehow you're illiterate. And I just want to say those things are just not true. Furthermore, if we don't know how to read, and we walk on someone's property that says no trespassing or I will shoot, if you walk on their property, chances are you will be shot. So even for just common navigation in this country, you have to know how to read.
Yeah.
Right?
And before I go to the next question, what would you say to people who, they're like, okay, I can read enough to, know that much, but I don't have time to read like a book like the autobiography of Malcolm X, or really thick 200-page books in this kind of, busy, just technology-driven status update society. How would somebody make reading a priority and fit it in?
The autobiography of Malcolm X is a wonderful read. And it is important that people read that book. However, well, I don't want to say however, because I don't want to try and combat what I just said. In addition to that, it's important to read, period. So oftentimes, in my opinion, if people are gravitating towards a particular genre of books, whether it's comic books, comic strips in the newspaper, sports magazines, anything to help exercise that muscle of the brain to read, comprehend, and deconstruct what other people are saying is important. So I don't want to overvalue, or devalue any literature. I think it's important for us, the proverbial us, to read, period, whatever it is. Because it helps us to have a deeper comprehension of things around us. So if people are reading things that hold their attention, grab their attention, that's what's up. By that same token, if we're talking about the educational system and we go as far as to enroll in the course, and the autobiography of Malcolm X is the assigned reading, then it's important that we as students, as learners, get into that and learn that and read that information.
Nice. I like what you said about, we don't want to devalue other types of reading. That kind of segues nicely into the next question, because I always ask the question and reflect on how does our literature relate to our music? Because in a way, music can be a kind of text, and it really is the backdrop. Like when you think about the Harlem Renaissance and jazz and how the writers were being inspired by that at the same time. How would you say that how is African-American literature in relationship with African-American music?
I would say they coalesce perfectly. Well, Dr. Naeem Akbar would suggest that we don't use that word perfection and strive towards excellence, because perfection in of itself is lightweight, unachievable, right? So in terms of literature and music, well, music can be written without, music cannot be played without being written, in terms of notes, right? We can definitely play music off the top of our dome. That's that's just what we
Yeah.
do. That's innate, right? We can
Mm-hmm.
do that. However, if you had some music that you wrote and you would like for me to learn it and play it, chances are I have to learn to read that music,
Right.
right? So music in itself is literature. And then we talk about rhymes, so we talk about songs, and we talk
Right.
about the lyrics to those songs. It is literature,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not just the cadence of how we move, how we get down. Again, that's innate, right? In my opinion, in melanated folk, right?
Yeah.
um,
I agree.
um, but literature is, I would say, a way to bridge that is Langston Hughes, "We Wear the Mask."
Mm.
Right? That's a poem that Langston Hughes wrote, what, in 1920s, 1930s, and Laura Hill brings it back in her music. The mask, we wear the mask, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, in my opinion, that's one of the ways in which literature influences music, and yeah, I just think, yeah, chances are we probably wouldn't have a lot of music as we know it. I'm not suggesting that we can't have music without lyrics, but when we talk about
Is
someone
that
who,
Paul Laurence Dunbar? What did he write a similar poem too?
we wear the mask,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps,
Okay.
and I could be mistaken. I remember it being Langston Hughes, but now that's some information. Now I'm going to go read upon that
Me
and,
too.
and make sure I have my information together. But I would say literature has a very, very strong connection and is interwoven into music, because when I was growing up, there were these things called albums.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So a
And
lot
the
of times,
albums would come with the liner notes.
that's my point. A lot of times we listen to this music over and over and over again, and we're trying to get the lyrics, we're getting the sounds, everything is cool. But one of the ways to help me memorize that was looking at the lyrics while listening to the music and singing along.
Mm-hmm.
So that literature, I'm saying Al Kabalan, but more commonly known as African or Black people,
Mm.
have always used literature and music to coincide. Those artists, those great artists that came with those albums and decided they're going to put the lyrics in the album cover, in my mind, knew exactly what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're getting us as learners who may be visual, auditory, and of course kinesthetic, right? Because we're
Right.
dancing. But
Yeah.
now we're looking at these lyrics and we're listening to this music and we're jamming and we're having a more holistic experience with that song.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I really like what you said about, you know, those artists, those early artists knew what they were doing. And I definitely think that we can pay more attention to the lyrics. Now we have to look up the lyrics ourselves, and we may have to put more intentional around looking at those lyrics so that we can see what people are saying. Are there any, how can we do that now in this generation? Like, especially, I don't know, but sometimes I find the lyrics that are out now, just not really that much to them unless you go searching for people who have like these lyrics that you would search and read.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, I'll be honest. Some of the lyrics that are being brought into our universe, I don't want to read, right?
Okay.
But that's my bias, and I have to recognize that's a privilege and a prejudice that I hold because I'm not in agreement with some of the lyrics that are actually being put on these records, right? But what Tribe Called Quest did on Check the Rhyme, they actually had their lyrics throughout their entire video.
Mm.
And at a time when people were doing more, booty shaking, shake the rump, showing their cards, etc., Tribe Called Quest actually had their lyrics. They barely showed themselves in that video. right? So perhaps one of the things that our artists can do would be similar to what Tribe Called Quest did, is find a creative way to build on what our predecessors have done. We have the lyrics in the albums. Now you have your lyrics on the videos. Maybe these creative folks that are coming up now to find a way to make sure that we're actually reading the music and the lyrics that we're listening to. Because, you know, anytime that we're saying things, whether it's in music, whether it's reading, over and over again, it becomes ritualistic and it becomes powerful. So when people don't know what they're saying, there can be some problems.
Yeah, I mean, you made me think about something. I think you're onto something. Like, that's the way we could automatically increase literacy and get people to read. Like, if you automatically, you know, what if Malcolm X, we had the equivalent of somebody who was a rapper like Malcolm X, and his speeches were like a text, and it was like you said, kind of subconsciously programming people to be more literate because you're digesting lyrics that are more, you know, you could actually read them and print them out and dissect them.
Yeah, before contact with Europeans, we learned by song and dance. Right? That's how all our stories were, that's how many of our stories were actually told. Even when we look at how we grew up in the States, right? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a, right?
Yeah.
Right? Or when the young ladies that I grew up around, they're playing jump rope, they're singing a song, double dutch, they had a song, right? Or patty cake bakers, man, whatever the case may be. A lot of times, even something as infinitesimal as the ABCs, there aren't very many people in my experience that doesn't have the cadence of LMNOP QRS.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So literature, literacy, music, it all coincides, and it's definitely one of the centerpieces of our, you know, the proverbial our learning. And when I say our, I'm talking about melanated people.
Yes, I love how you say that. So that brings me to, do you have any particular texts that you recommend for people to read, or anything you want to share?
Oh man, texts. Ooh. Yes.
Or what motivated you? We want to know, I know students want to know, like, they're looking, they see this Black scholar, professor, African-American history expert. What motivated you to become an avid reader and research our history like that?
Well, that's it has been a transition. Right?
They want to know the transition, because people feel like, I can never be like that.
Yeah, because, you know, educating, you know, for lack of a better word, is what I do. It's not who I am. So I didn't just pop up, right, and can speak to this information. That being said, I was born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1969, you know, just a few months after Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Wow.
Martin Luther King was assassinated within walking distance from my house, less than a mile from my house.
Oh, wow.
So 577D Handy Mall, it can be looked up, right? So, well, the Claiborne Homes projects are no longer there, but that address still exists in public record. Anyway, so I lived in a community where Black power, Black excellence, Black loyalty, Black family, Black suffrage, Black struggle, Black disaster was all around me all the time. I literally walked past hookers, drug dealers, drug users, gamblers, people who were stealing from one another, the whole nine, as I was walking to school. And they made certain to say, why are you late? Start running, get to school on time, et cetera, et cetera. So regardless of people's situation, school was very, very important. Information, knowledge, knowing was always important. So I can definitely say, though, with all that, I still took the wrong route, right? In fact, it took me, I flunked out of high school once.
Mm.
I went to school after somewhat changing my life around. I was never really a dummy. I liked to read growing up. For me, it was the smarter you were, the cooler you were. So I was,
Oh, wow,
still,
that's nice.
yeah. So whatever it took to, attract the young ladies, with my intellect and my gift of gab, I was on top of it, right? But then when I moved from Memphis, my mom decided she wanted us to move out the ghetto and moved us to Compton. So, and things
What?
shifted. Yeah.
Okay.
So things shifted, right?
Mhm.
School wasn't so important anymore. It was really a matter of survival. I had to go to school because I had to leave the house. But on the way to school, I had to do some things, or run from some things, or run towards some things, whatever the case may be, to get to that safe place, so to speak, which was school. So yeah, I flunked out of high school.
This was
Well,
in
let me go back.
Compton?
Yes, well, I flunked out of high school.
It
Yeah, I
was
was
in
still living in
Memphis?
Compton at the time because I moved over to LA quite a few times. So I
Okay.
left Memphis when I was 10 and moved to LA, Compton, and East Side, West Side, the whole nine. One thing I did leave out though was when I was about the second or third grade in Memphis, walking past all these people and encouraging me to go to school. One of the teachers, a third grade teacher, I believe, wanted to talk to my mom about skipping me a grade to, because I was getting all my work done. I was doing pretty cool in school.
Mhm.
And I remember distinctly, my mom was like, no, I'm not moving him up a grade because he's bad enough as is. So he doesn't need to be around people. He does not need to be around older people. I'm the youngest of five. So he does not need to be around older people. Side note, what I learned from Dr. Georgia Group is that oftentimes Black mothers specifically, when white people, teachers, educators would say, oh, that Jimmy is so smart. He could go and be the next president, et cetera. It's like, yeah, no, he's not that smart, because they were protecting us, because oftentimes when people were seen as special by white people, we were stolen from our families. We were taken and put into these schools, the specialized schools, because we were so special. Now we're out of our community, and there's pretty much nothing our moms can do, right? So I have to give my mom for that, because at the time I thought school was not important. I don't need to go to school, so F it, right? But it was later that I learned that that was her way of protecting me, to make sure that she kept me close to the house. So I was saying to
That
say,
makes
after
sense,
that,
though. That's the post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? The post-traumatic
absolutely,
slave syndrome, yeah.
absolutely. So after that, I flunked out of high school. I had some unfortunate situations happen, and I had to leave LA. And I had a brother who was going to UC Berkeley at the time. And my mom was so happy that he was in college. I was like, I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna do it. She's like, yeah, I know you can do it. I'm like, yeah. I had no intention of going to college whatsoever. I didn't know I was gonna make it, right? Past 15, 16 years old. So when things happened and my mom made me move to Berkeley with my brother, I went to Berkeley High School. And that was the first time I've ever heard of African American history, African American studies. I could learn African language, African American economics, all these things. And I was hooked. Mr. Navies, Mr. Kaya, Mr. McKnight, like these gentlemen show me what it meant to be human, right? Because as much as I love being a Black man, I'm a human first,
Right.
But they helped me to learn to differentiate too. And man, they were just Mr. Allen. I was in the class, African American literature with Mr. Allen, and this guy was giving us college assignments every week, banging out Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, and
this was Berkeley High School?
At Berkeley High School,
Oh,
Invisible Man. So we had to read Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. No, Ralph Ellison. Right?
Yep.
Native Son. We had to read Cain by Gene Toomer. We had to read The Eyes of Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. We had to read The Bluest Eye by
Toni Morrison.
we were reading these things, deconstructing them, and taking them back to class and having and holding these discussions that were powerful. And I could not be in that conversation.
Yeah.
And then at Berkeley High was the first time I went to school with white people. There was no way I was gonna let them show me up in this class. So I found myself just diving into these books because I realized then that these systems that are out here trapping us. I'm a thug. I'm a boss bitch. I'm a gangster. I got all this. It's
right.
like setting us up. And I realized that
setup.
Right. And if these people were talking about the problems in the 1920s and 40s and 30s and 50s that I'm experiencing in the 1980s, 70s, and 90s,
and still now,
there's something happening. There's something happening. So I started to appreciate reading a little bit more. Got my act together. Graduated from high school. People thought that wasn't going to happen. Went to San Jose State to play basketball and flunked out of San Jose State also.
Oh, right? I didn't know. Thought it was going to be a happy ending, but I mean, no, it was.
Well, that's where I am today, right? Flunked out of college. Went back to the neighborhood, and my friend's mom was saying, "Yo, y'all keep running around doing this and doing that. They're just letting things stack up. So when they finally get you on a good case or something like that, they're ready to ship you off. Right? They just slap you on the hand for a reason. They're piling up the information on you. If you're not doing something with your life, they're gonna have a justification for locking you up for a long time. There's nothing you can do about it. So I was like, all right, start taking classes at Laney College.
All right.
Dr. Carol Ward Allen. She taught African American politics. Was one of the people I would call my woe mentor.
Nice.
And helped contributed to saving my life. She had this book. The name of the book is The Voices of Marcus Messiah Garvey. Because I was cutting up in class, so she's like, "Yo, you're fired, but if you don't do something, she's like, if you don't let this flame, exist, it's gonna get put out, and you're gonna be in some serious trouble." She wrote to me in the book, and I showed her this book. This was 1990s. I showed her that book a few years ago because now we're so-called colleagues. She's still Dr. Ward Allen to me. She couldn't believe I still had that book, and I remember taking it in class.
Oh, wow.
But it's one of the things that helped change my life, reading. So fast forward, I left Laney College. One day on my motorcycle, I just went to San Jose State. I was looking around the African American Studies department, didn't see anyone. I was getting ready to walk away. And this guy said, "Hey, you look lost. Can I help you?" It's like, "Yeah, I was looking for someone to speak to." It's like, "Oh, well, come in. We can talk here." Told him a little bit of my story, what was happening, what I was trying to do, what I'd like to see happen. Dr. Joshua Abaye is his name. Turned out he was the chair of the African American Studies department.
Wow.
Said to me, "If you take these classes next semester and pass those classes, I'm guaranteeing your enrollment in San Jose State."
I love it.
Dr. Joshua Abaye, another Black man. So needless to say, I bust A's that semester, went to San Jose State that following semester, and the semester after that, I was living in Ghana on a study abroad project.
Nice.
So I'm saying that to say that struggle is real, but it's mine, right? There's no time limit to us coming to our own awareness because we do it in our own time. But if I wasn't reading, if I wasn't learning, not just reading just to go through the pages, but actually taking in this information our ancestors are leaving us, these blueprints to how to navigate these systems, I'll be in trouble. So I'm saying all that to say that although I'm flawed, I'm here. And the reason why I'm teaching, right? So the reason why I'm learning about African American culture, African American history, studies, melanated people, ethnic studies, period. Because I like to believe that this is going to be my way of giving back.
Nice. I love that. Oh my gosh, being a poet, I can't help but like snap it up because that was just like an amazing story. I
Thank you.
mean, I just got chills. You talking about all the different people in your path that helped. Could you imagine like if you hadn't have just ran into the chair of the department, just ran into Dr. Carol Allen Ward, and just it was like a whole village.
Hmm. Yeah, and it took a little bit of learning for me too, because typically I would have been pushing those people away, right? But it got to a point. I said it to myself. I said to some of my partners, "So yo, I'm about to change my life around, and I'm gonna go back to school." And instead of those cats talking bad to me, talking down to me, and talk about, oh man, like in Belly,
Right.
where what's his name? DMX told Nas, man, your daughter can't eat no books. Right? Better get out here and get this money. My partners actually stepped up and they were very, very supportive. I, when I went back to school and I moved to Africa, the whole nine, I was living like a king because my partners kicked their money for me to be able
Oh,
to do that,
nice.
and um, what's his name, who wrote $40 Million Slave, William C. Holden
Mm.
wrote $40 Million Slave. It talks about the psychological armor, right? If Jackie Robinson knocks a ball out the park and he's the first black person to get to the league, I did that, right? When Muhammad Ali refused to go and fight some people that never called him a bad word, and he goes back and get his championship, I did that, right? The psychological armor that's so often upheld in our communities that, yeah, we're doing this, but if you go do this, you're doing this for us, right? So I've always been able to have that from mentors, partners, the whole nine. It's like, yo, we are somebody, even if you're the somebody that represents
Right. And I really think overall your story will motivate the young man watching this and the men watching this to have, your village of support and be, whether it's your friends, have the right friends around you. Number one, I've always said, birds of a feather flock together, that kind of rubs off on you, whether you realize it or not. And just being real intentional about receiving the support and the messages from the village, the tribe that you build.
Yeah, Dr. Naeem Akbar talks about this plantation psychosis, right? This notion that I'm not tripping if I'm selling dope in my neighborhood and I got a house, I got some cars, and my kids go to the better schools, I'm getting out. It doesn't matter if they get out. This plantation psychosis of I don't care who I hurt, when in fact that's not how we roll
Right.
innately. Right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Plantation psychosis. We still got that.
Right. So I apologize. I felt like I did not answer the question. So if there are questions or books that I would suggest.
Yes. But well, I mean, you mentioned a couple of books in that, like $40 Million Slave. Is that a book? Tell us more about that book. $40 Million Slave.
William C. Roden, $40 Million Slave. He named that. Actually, the book itself is profound because I used that book in one of my classes, and it was a class full of football players. In fact, the football players that won Laney's first state championship were in my class. Right?
Oh, wow. That's so fun. And they all read
And
that book?
they had to. We were putting in work. And to a point, I won't say this person's name, but he's at a top ranked NCAA school right now. He's definitely going pro. Professor Crutison, I think I'm gonna quit the football team. It's like whoa, right? Because $40 Million Slave. One of the things that we did was talk about. We deconstructed the football combines and the auction block, right? When people were stolen and brought to the States, this continent, before they could be sold, before they were actually sold on Wall Street, right? That's how we got Wall Street in the first place. Before people were sold on Wall Street, excuse me, as a commodity, they, check the muscles. What did you used to do? Were you a farmer? Were you a hunter? Were you, what did you do? Did you herd? Like, what did you do? Let's see your teeth. How strong are you? How tall are you? How healthy are you? What does your parents do? All these physical and psychological gauges to find out what kind of enslaved person can you be. How important are you going to be to me in my economic prowess, right? And when we looked at the combines and how high can you jump? If it was between your mother and your wife, who are you going to save on a rap? These are questions that they asked at the combine.
Oh my goodness!
Part of the psychological tests, right? How much can you
Plantation
lift?
Psychosis.
Right. How much can you lift? How high can you jump? What was your GPA in school? How many times you've been incarcerated? All these just. So I think based on the conversations that some of the football players will bring it back to the classroom in these dialogues that we're having, yo, man, F coach such and such. I'm not doing it. I see what you're talking about now. I didn't say anything. You came up with that based on what we're reading, right? But you can go tell them I said it. I don't care, right?
Because most of the people who own the teams are white. Is that the point the book makes?
It made that point, and it also talked about the conveyor belt, right? Of how when people recognize at a young age, oh, this kid's going to be a standout athlete. LeBron James at 10 years old, oh, he's going to be something special. Let's move him through AAU, right? Let's move him through these other basketball leagues. Let's, we're going to start paying him now. When he gets in trouble for slapping the girl, and when he's 16 years old, he gets brushed under the rug. So by the time he's socking on some girl and dragging her in the elevator, at 24, it's not a big deal.
Oh my God.
Right? This conveyor belt of how they teach people, particularly Black men, not to be responsible for their actions, not to worry about anything, because as long as you can get on that field and make me some money, I'm gonna make sure you don't get in trouble. Right? So William Rosen talked about that. The reason why he came up with that book is because, the title of that book, Larry Johnson, some people may know him as Grandmama, who played for UNLV Running Rebels, and alongside Greg Anthony, Stacey Young, and some of these other ball players under the auspices of Jerry Tarkanian, the Shark, they used to call him, for various reasons. Grandmama became really popular and went and played for the Charlotte Hornets. And he was one of the few players that actually got a guaranteed $40 million contract.
Oh.
So he helped the Hornets get to the playoffs. He didn't do well. And he realized that he was being used by ownership. Like, you didn't do this, the fans are on him the whole nine. And he said, look, I'm tired of trying to live in ways that you suggest I should live. Yes, I have this contract, but when I go home and see my partners, I have to worry about being robbed, or I have to look at the conditions of my family or the conditions of my partners. I can't save everybody. So yes, I'm here, but my community is not. My people are not. And it's like, I'm just not going to be your slave. I refuse to be your slave. He was running down the court when William C. Roden, a sports writer for ESPN at the time, was covering the game, and one of the fans said to him, "You ain't nothing but a $40 million slave."
Wow.
Right, and that's how it became the name of his book. Dope book, very pragmatic. And what I mean by pragmatic, it's an easy read. It's so captivating. It's so familiar to many of us, especially athletes and non-athletes, that it makes you want to just keep reading. And I was saying that to say, I was talking about that.
It's on my list now.
I was talking about that because the brother that wanted to, he was real serious about quitting the football team. And we stopped the class right there. Like, whoa, cool. That's what's up. Why do you want to play football in the first place? Oh, man, I got to get my mom up out this neighborhood. All right, well, why do you think you're in the neighborhood? Oh, because we're going to have an economic mobility to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you quit football right now, you can't go to the NFL. What do you think you're gonna do? Man, I'll probably just move back to my neighborhood, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. That's like, do you feel like that would be honoring your mom and honoring your ancestors and your skills and abilities to just give up? Like, nah, man, but I don't want to be a $40 million slave. I don't want to be. He took my class that summer. He took another class, and I called him out in class because he said to me, lightweight verbatim, I do not want to be known as a dumb jock. Right? He said that in my class. So, I'm not in the business of telling people what to do. So I ask him a lot of questions. And
Yeah, I'm the same.
He's in a big name school, and he's pretty much guaranteed to go to the NFL. And one of the things that he's like, well, how am I gonna do this? We talked about Juneteenth, and he started an actual segment in Juneteenth in Richmond now, to where they actually learn how Juneteenth came about. He said he had never heard that till in this class. So now that's the actual segment in the Juneteenth parade where they stop the parade and talk about that. So my point is, when he was talking about quitting, he can't be an activist and a football player. Like, yeah, no, not true. You can do all kinds of things, but you have to use your platform for what you feel like is best for you and your people. And yeah, I'm proud to say I think that young brother's on his way to doing some great things. His first time ever writing a 10-page paper.
Oh, wow.
In that class. He's like, man, I've never been pushed like that. All right. The flip side of that is there's another gentleman that was in one of my classes that didn't pass my class. Right? Came to me a couple of semesters later. Mr. Crutison, let me talk to you. I was like, this dude was like 6'6", 300. Am I really gonna have to fight this guy? And he said to me, he said, I really, really appreciate being in your class. I'm gonna take your class again next semester. I didn't pass your class because I didn't pass your class. So you're the first instructor that I've ever had that held me responsible for my actions in the classroom. And I'm not gonna say the school, but he's in a very, very, very popular private university in Northern California right now.
Wow.
So I'm saying that to say, and they don't go to me because they've written me, they've emailed me like, oh man, you taught me this. Like, I didn't teach you anything. I exposed you to some things, and you learned that for yourself. Right? That's the beauty of reading. That's the beauty of learning. The beauty of comprehending that no one can teach you. Right? You learn it for yourself, and then no one can take it away from you.
Right. And it really is about self-motivation, like you said. As instructors, we just present the information, but you have to really step in and take that initiative, the self-initiative, self-determination.
Even deconstructing the word educate is not what someone gives, it's what you get out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was just reflecting on that this morning, because that Latin root for education is to draw out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all we do, is just draw it out.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's one point in your story I want to ask you about, and then I'm going to invite you to share any, work that you want to read as we close the interview, or the motivational moments. And when you said that you went to Berkeley High School and you were just on fire to read so that you could be a part of that discussion, and you decided to turn your life around, that's the point. That's the magic sauce in that moment. I'm really curious to know, like, what made you just jump into those complicated texts and read like that? And how did you fit it into your schedule?
Mr. Allen had expectations of me, right? He thought that there was something about me that I wasn't willing to share. So he would call on me in class. And at the beginning of that semester, when I first transferred, I didn't know those answers. So I was like, nah, I'm playing on the basketball team. I'm new at the school. The ladies are feeling me. I got some cool partners. I can't be a clown, right?
Yeah.
But what happened, the way I was drawn to this reading was that I wasn't, my comprehension level wasn't up to par. I could read. I could always read, right? But I was learning to just read through the words, not take into what they were saying until I started reading those books. and realized Bigger Thomas was my big brother. You know, Bigger Thomas
Mm-hmm.
from Invisible Man.
Yeah.
When I learned that some of these characters are reflective of some of my partners, my
Yeah.
friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I had someone that I can associate these real characters to real people, and I just became so intrigued. I found the time. I just found the time.
Yeah.
You know, it was times I wanted to kick it, but you know, a lot of times, you know, my brother used to say you can kick it now and pay later, or you can learn now and play later, right?
Oh, I like that saying. Kick it now, or kick it
You
now
can
and pay later,
later,
or
or learn now and play later,
and learn,
right?
or learn now and play later. I like that.
Right. So it's just I became so
Oh, there's
intrigued by
another
what I
quote you just made me think about is you can either have the pain of discipline or the pain of regret.
right for real, for real, right. Yeah. So I read because I was reading. I became most interested in reading because I was reading about me.
Mm,
I was reading about
that's
my
it.
people. I was reading about things I was familiar with from a different perspective. Um, I can remember talking to my friends. We used to walk around neighborhoods trying to figure out why are people killing each other all the time over colors, whatever the case may be. And I started to understand that it was in between those lines, you know, of these books where I was starting to get the answers. So now I want to know how can I stop it? How can I
Yeah.
prevent myself from being this? What am I going to do to make certain that this doesn't happen to my, you know, little cousin or my son or my daughter or, you know, what have you. So I jumped into reading just so I could try to figure some things out.
Nice. Thank you for that, for
Mhm.
sharing your story.
Right on.
And
Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
do you have any questions for me before I have you read your piece that you're going to share?
I have so many questions for you. I think I've been asking questions of you since we started with a Mojo back in
Yeah.
the day. One of the questions I would like to ask you, right? Because I have some inferences based on conversations that we had. Um, what motivates you, um, the solid, um, very intelligent, committed woman, if I may, to the struggle to commit so diligently and wholeheartedly to young men?
Yeah, because you've been with me in the journey. We took all those men to M2M and a Mojo Men's group. It really just is a real simple answer, and it's that I was a daddy's little girl growing up. So I really always emphasize that to men, if you have daughters, it makes a huge impact. And my dad, I became more educated than my father. I'm a first generation college student. And we still have a relationship today. And, he just retired. I'm so happy. But he worked in a factory all of my, life growing up. And just as I started to get more education and just watching him work so hard, how I'm from Arkansas, and how people discriminate and just talk bad to Black men. I wanted so much better for my own father, but there's nothing that I could do, but become an educator and try to uplift other men. Don't let your daughter become more educated than you, I guess, is what I'm. Does that make sense?
I hear. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, so it's
Absolutely.
like I'm doing it for my dad.
Okay. Fair enough. Another question I have for you. Um, I have a pretty good idea again because of our work together. What you do, and I see you in the community on campus, and I see how the energy is drawn towards you from many, many students, both male and female. But I want to know, like, who are you and what makes you tick?
You see, you didn't tell me this before. Y'all, I got to think about this because I am, like you said, committed to uplifting and liberating Black people, melanated peoples. I like the way you put it. And I am optimistic. I've been having my students do a one-word wellness check-in. And every day, like, my word is optimistic, optimistic. And somebody said today, that's your favorite word. I'm like, I know, because every day you need optimism every day, especially right now during the global health crisis. And so I am really determined. And I think because, this is my I always felt like this was my second chance at life. I shared with my students that I grew up with a chronic illness, spent a lot of time in and out of hospitals, and me and my cousin, we were actually ill together, and I watched her pass away in our 20s, but I'm here, like you said, I'm flawed, but I'm still living. And so I feel, and especially growing up in a working class family and making it this far in my education level, I really feel a strong sense of responsibility to give back and to do something with the time that I've been blessed with. And I was also being close to my dad was also supplemented with being close to both of my grandmothers. And so I have a lot of grandmama wisdom imparted in me. So I feel like an old soul, and that I'm very conscious of the Black struggle, because they would always share those stories. In Arkansas in the South is so different too it's a different kind of Blackness here in the Bay Area. And that's a whole nother conversation we'll have to have offline. But yeah, so that's what motivates me, is that grandmama wisdom and being close to my father and being close to uplifting other people. But I hope that answers your question. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're back.
Right.
And
let's call it what it is. The fire is in the universe, and there's some others that will try to extinguish it.
Yeah, I was like, was it? Because every time when me and my sister are on the phone and the phone shut down, we're like, uh-oh, we made the FBI mad.
Right. Real, real.
So,
I think it's real. I think it's real.
But I hope that answers your question. What were you going to say?
Yes. I want to share with you the reason why I ask those questions is because in my experience, oftentimes you're picking up other people. And I know for a fact that you're not in this for the accolades, but I just want to do my part in helping you shine.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not for the accolades. I prefer to be behind the scenes, uplifting the folks.
Right. That's fair.
So,
but we had to know who Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman were, right? They couldn't just be behind the scenes.
Yeah, they were behind the scenes though until after they died. Harriet was underground.
That's why we have to make sure that we recognize you now. So
thank you for that.
Yeah, I like to recognize you now because you're always doing dope work, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So you're gonna close us out with a special poem you have for everybody, right?
All right. I have a a piece that wrote me actually back in the day, and I thought it'd be fitting based on the conversation we were speaking to in terms of the Roaring Twenties or Harlem Renaissance, Malcolm X, some of these people. So this poem, yeah, I didn't write it. It really wrote me. So yeah, so I'll speak the words that came. The name of it is What Happened to Jazz. What happened to jazz? What happened to slow songs? What happened to late night telephone calls, Lou Rawls, and Teddy Pendergrass? What happened to jazz? Not that Kenny G shit. What happened to jazz? What happened to Billie Holiday? The lyrics I write are so supreme. What happened to John Coltrane and Love Supreme? What happened to being supreme, Black people? What happened to jazz? What happened to jazz making you happy, making you sad? What happened to the Congo, the djembe, and the talking drum? What happened to the war dance? What happened to dancing to get a glance into her soul? What happened to dancing for rain? What happened to rock and roll? I mean, Jimi Hendrix. Fuck R&B. What happened to rhythm and blues? What happened to Bessie Smith? Memory. What happened to Marvin Gaye? What's going on? What happened to Africa? What happened to hip hop? Tupac. Why did Biggie get shot? Will there ever be another Jam Master Jay? It's a shame what happened to Amadou Diallo. What happened to Miss Evans, Miss Shabazz, and Mr. King? What happened to Emmett Till? What happened to N. Rosewood? What happened to Dr. Nkrumah and his vision? Mansa Musa and his mission? What happened to children playing in the streets instead of children spraying in the streets? What happened to the clouds when the rain dropped? I know what's going to happen to dirty cops. They got to stop. What happened to Black love? What happened to the Oakland Riders and the one that got away? What happened to Goody Mob, the Fugees, Tony, and NWA? What happened to the Supremes? What happened to Anime? What happened to the epiphany of a woman? Shaka Khan. What happened to kente cloth and crowns? What happened to Black woman that makes her love him so much and so little? What happened to Paul Robeson? What really happened to Bob Marley? What happened to this Black man that makes him love her so right and so wrong? What happened to villages raising young people? Why some people have mansions and so many people are hungry and homeless? What happened to the radio? What happened to the radio? Why is Dead Prayers declaring turn off the radio? Turn off that bullshit. What happened to creativity and sharing creations? What happened to our native tongues? What happened to going home to Al Kebalan? My bad, I mean Africa. Africa? What happened to Marcus Garvey as he sojourned the truth? What happened to listening to the winds as it whispers? What happened to spiritual building regardless of spiritual beliefs? What happened to the brother who got his tongue cut out because he told a white woman no? What happened to Papa Doc who got his eyes burned out because he taught himself to read the Bible? What happened to justice that was promised? What happened to afros and twists and locks? What happened to rent parties to help a neighbor? What happened to collard greens and macaroni and cheese, cakes, pies and catfish with hella hot sauce? What happened to cookouts? What happened to civil rights instead of civil wrongs? What happened to building Trueberries, considering their books are full of lies? Someone, please tell me what happened.
Yes. What happened to jazz? That's perfect. And that's an original piece?
Yeah, I wrote that.
That's so awesome.
Well, I put the words on paper. It was written already. I don't know where it came from. But I put the words on the paper, but I didn't write that.
That's the perfect way to close our Motivational Monday, because it just shows the music, how it influences the literature, because that's definitely, there's music in there with the rhythm, and you mentioned music, and the title is What Happened to Jazz. So that's perfect. So thank you. I'm going to stop the video. Everybody else, if you have any questions for Professor Crutison, you can drop them down in the discussion and I'll share them with him to respond.
Cool. Appreciate you.
Thank you.